At this moment, somewhere in the world, a private jet worth tens of millions of dollars is taking off with nobody in the cabin. The pilots are paid, the engines are burning fuel, the airport is charging fees, the airplane is accumulating maintenance time, but there is no passenger drinking champagne, closing a deal, or even looking out the window. The cabin is empty because the airplane has to be somewhere else. Industry estimates vary, but they consistently point to a strange fact. A meaningful share of private aviation flights, roughly 1 in 3 by a commonly cited European estimate, and closer to 4 in 10 in some broader analyses, operate without passengers. That sounds like waste. It is. But it is also the byproduct of the business model. And once you understand why these flights exist, you understand something larger. The customer on a private jet is not really buying a seat. The customer is buying control over an aircraft's location and time. Everyone else is working around that decision. This is the empty leg, the hidden business of private aviation. Today, why private jets fly empty, who ultimately pays for those flights, why the discounts can be so dramatic, and why technology has never fully solved the problem. Start with a simple trip. A customer charters a jet from New York to Miami. The passenger boards in New York, flies south, and steps off in Miami. From the passenger's point of view, the trip is finished. For the aircraft operator, it may be only half finished. The jet might need to return to its home base in New York. It might need to fly to Atlanta for its next customer. It might be due for maintenance in another city. Or the crew might need to reposition the airplane somewhere that keeps the next day's schedule legal and workable. That movement without the paying charter customer is the empty leg. In the industry, you will also hear repositioning flight, deadhead, or ferry flight, depending on the context. An empty leg is not a special kind of aircraft. It is a scheduling condition. An airplane is in one place, but the business needs it in another. And unlike an airline, a charter operator cannot simply wait for dozens of passengers to fill a published route. Private aviation sells individual missions. Every mission changes the position of the airplane. Airlines build networks around repeatable schedules. Flight 100 leaves at the same time on the same route with hundreds of seats offered to the market. Even if a particular passenger changes plans, the aircraft still follows the network. Private charter works in reverse. The customer's requested departure time, airport, destination, passenger count, and aircraft requirement create the mission. The fleet has to adapt. Imagine an operator with 3 jets and 6 trips across a weekend. One customer wants Teterboro to Palm Beach at 9 Friday morning. Another wants Nashville to Aspen Friday afternoon. A third needs Los Angeles to Cabo on Saturday. The aircraft types are not interchangeable. The crews have duty limits. Maintenance events are fixed. Airports have curfews, slots, parking restrictions, and weather. The operator is solving a moving puzzle in which the most expensive pieces travel hundreds of miles every time you reposition them. Sometimes the best answer is to fly empty. That is why the empty leg problem cannot be reduced to find a passenger going the same way. The match must work across route, departure window, airport, aircraft category, passenger count, crew legality, maintenance status, and the schedule of the original paying customer. Miss on any one of those dimensions, and the match disappears. The exact percentage depends on what is counted, where, and which fleet is being measured. Avinode, one of the major charter marketplace platforms, analyzed European business aviation activity and estimated that roughly 33% of trip legs were flown empty, about 139,000 empty legs out of roughly 420,000 annual business jet movements in its analysis. Other industry and policy estimates have used figures around 40%. A recent International Council on Clean Transportation working paper modeled 41% of private jet flights as empty repositioning movements, while noting that the assumption came from prior analysis. Those numbers should not be treated as one universal truth. Managed fleets, floating fleets, owner aircraft, jet card programs, regions, and seasons behave differently. But the range tells us the problem is not an edge case. Empty flying is a structural feature of on-demand private aviation, so who pays for a flight with no passenger? Usually, the economics begin with the primary charter. When an operator quotes a one-way trip, the price is not simply fuel plus crew for the hours the customer is physically on board. The quote has to account for the aircraft's larger operating reality: positioning into the pickup airport, repositioning after the drop-off, crew expenses, landing and handling fees, maintenance reserves, scheduling risk, and the possibility that the airplane will fly part of the mission empty. The customer may see one number. Behind it is a chain of aircraft movements. That does not mean every quote literally contains a line marked "empty return." Pricing can be structured in many ways, and operators compete differently. Some aircraft are already nearby. Some fleets float rather than return to one base. Some membership or jet card products spread repositioning costs across a broader program. But in economic terms, the cost does not vanish. It is recovered through charter pricing, owner fees, program pricing, improved fleet utilization, or the operator's margin. The empty leg buyer comes later. Once the primary trip has created a required repositioning flight, the operator may offer that movement to the market at a steep discount. The airplane is going anyway, or at least that is the current plan. Selling the cabin can recover revenue against a cost that already exists. This is why an empty leg price can look irrationally cheap compared with a normal charter. The operator is not pricing a fully flexible new mission from zero. The operator is monetizing a constrained byproduct of someone else's trip. Depending on the route and how close the flight is to departure, advertised discounts can reach 50% or more below the price of arranging a conventional charter. Occasionally, a difficult-to-sell leg can appear even cheaper. But the discount is not free value. It is a transfer of control. On a normal charter, the customer chooses the mission and pays for the aircraft to serve it. On an empty leg, the mission already exists. The customer must fit the aircraft. The route is largely fixed. The airport may be fixed. The departure window can move. The aircraft can change. The primary customer can alter plans. And if the original trip disappears, the empty leg may disappear with it. The cleanest way to say it is this: an empty leg is not cheaper flexibility. It is cheaper precisely because the flexibility belongs to someone else. That trade can be excellent for the right traveler. If you can move your departure by several hours, accept a nearby airport, travel one way, and make a commercial backup plan, an empty leg can open access to an aircraft that would otherwise cost far more. But it is a poor substitute for a mission that cannot fail. This is not theoretical. Charter terms used by JetSmarter, an app we will return to shortly, said its empty legs could be canceled at any time, with or without notice, that the company was not obligated to provide a replacement aircraft, and that the remedy was generally a refund of the empty leg price. That language reflects the underlying hierarchy. The empty leg depends on the primary movement. The discount passenger is not controlling the schedule. If the meeting is critical, the wedding cannot be missed, or the family must be home by a fixed time, the risk can erase the savings. There is another detail. An app or broker selling access is not necessarily the aircraft operator. In the United States, legitimate on-demand passenger charter generally operates under Federal Aviation Regulation, Part 135, with specific requirements covering pilot qualifications, operations, maintenance, and safety. Before booking, a customer should know who is operating the aircraft, verify the operator's authority, understand the cancellation terms, and know whether a backup aircraft is promised. The empty leg market looks like a perfect software problem. Put every repositioning flight into an app, show the route and price, match unused capacity with travelers, reduce waste. Everyone wins. That idea has attracted marketplaces, brokers, membership programs, and enormous amounts of venture capital. Software absolutely improves visibility. Platforms can search across thousands of aircraft, rank potential matches, calculate acceptable deviations, and notify customers when a route appears. But software cannot change the physics of the inventory. The supply is irregular. It is created by another customer's plans. It can appear late. it can vanish. Two flights that look close on a map may be separated by the wrong departure window, airport constraints, crew duty limits, or an aircraft that is too large, too small, or not certified for the mission. And demand is irregular too. It is not enough to find someone who wants Miami to New York. That traveler must want it on the same day, near the same time, from an acceptable airport, with the right passenger count, while accepting uncertainty. The problem is not just discovery, it is coincidence. That is the difference between a marketplace and an airline network. A marketplace exposes what exists. It does not make unstable inventory behave like a dependable schedule. For the operator, an empty leg is not automatically a failure. The repositioning flight may be necessary to serve a higher value customer. It may protect aircraft utilization, return the jet to an owner, or put the fleet in a market where the next trip is more likely. The real objective is not to eliminate every empty mile. It is to minimize unproductive flying without damaging reliability. Accepting an empty leg passenger can create extra handling, catering, cleaning, coordination, and customer service obligations. A small deviation can add time and cost. A delay can threaten the primary trip. A cheap sale is not useful if it creates an expensive operational problem. So operators make a calculation. How much revenue can this passenger add? How much risk and deviation will the passenger create? And how valuable is the aircraft's next mission? This is why the best empty legs often disappear quickly, while the awkward routes remain visible. The listing board is not a complete picture of supply. It is the residue of a constantly changing schedule. There is also a cost no charter quote fully captures. A private jet burns fuel whether the cabin is full or empty. A 2024 peer-reviewed study estimated that private aviation produced at least 15.6 million metric tons of direct carbon dioxide emissions in 2023, averaging roughly 3.6 tons per flight across the dataset. The study could not determine exactly which flights were empty, but the basic inefficiency is obvious. An empty repositioning movement produces emissions without transporting the passenger whose plans created the trip. Selling the empty cabin does not necessarily remove the flight. It may simply add people to a movement that would have happened anyway. That can improve passenger utility per flight, but it does not solve the network design that produced the repositioning. The bigger gains come from better fleet positioning, floating fleet models, combining compatible demand, using the smallest suitable aircraft, and avoiding unnecessary movements in the first place. An empty leg makes sense when 5 things are true. First, your schedule is flexible. Second, the route works without a large detour. Third, you are comfortable arranging a separate return or backup. Fourth, you have verified the actual operator and the terms. And fifth, the discount is large enough to compensate for the control you are giving up. Ask direct questions. What primary trip creates this leg? How close to departure can it be canceled? Is the departure time guaranteed? Is a replacement aircraft provided? Which Part 135 operator conducts the flight? What fees are included? What happens if the aircraft changes? Can the operator accommodate a nearby airport? And is the quoted price for the entire aircraft or per seat? If the seller cannot answer clearly, the discount is not the opportunity. It is the warning. The empty leg reveals the central truth of private aviation. The product is control. Privacy, comfort, and status matter. But the defining value is the ability to decide when an aircraft leaves, where it lands, who boards, and how the trip fits your life. That control is extraordinarily valuable and operationally expensive. The passenger who buys the primary charter pays to bend the network around a mission. The passenger who buys the empty leg receives a discount for bending around the network. Same airplane, completely different product. One company looked at all of these empty aircraft, all of this wasted capacity, and saw the foundation for a technology unicorn. JetSmarter promised to make private flying feel like an app. Shared shuttles, empty legs, memberships, and access that sounded almost unlimited. The company raised more than $100 million in a single round and was valued at roughly $1.5 billion before it was acquired. The pitch was irresistible. Become the Uber of private jets without owning the jets. But the same inventory problem we just explained was hiding underneath the growth story. Irregular supply was being packaged as dependable access. As the company scaled, the rules changed, members sued, and the economics became harder to ignore. That is our next story. The private jet company that never had jets, and what happened when software collided with the real cost of moving airplanes.